Hey, hi, hello, thanks for checking out this video. If you're new, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. It's good to see you again. I am auraluxe.art, illustrator and webcomic artist, and in this video I'll be talking a bit about my recent experiences contributing to ComicFury Zine, and going over how I make short story / one-shot comics. So, for the past year and a half, I've been contributing to ComicFury Zine, a free-to-read zine hosted by some members of the ComicFury webcomic community. The zine has been running since 2020 and typically puts out 2 editions each year, one safe for work and one not safe for work, though it looks like the earliest editions from 2020 were both safe for work. Each zine usually has a theme, and artists from the ComicFury community can submit comics up to 5 pages long, usually, with whatever sort of interpretation of the theme that they like, in addition to things like artist interviews, a double-page spread illustration with character art from all the contributors, and other fun little things. All of our work for this edition has wrapped up, and the Safe for Work edition of the zine released yesterday, November 21st. So this effectively wraps up any not my personal projects for the year. As a result, I wanted to talk a bit about my process creating these kinds of short comics, and talk a bit about my experience contributing to the zine over the past year or so, since they have changed up how they handle things, and I feel like that's worth mentioning. I've been contributing to zines pretty regularly since about 2016 or so, but for the most part they were mostly just one-off illustrations based on a fandom or a theme. My first zine comic contribution was for an anthology back in 2019, and since then I've more or less done roughly one comic-based entry a year for various zines until I started doing ComicFury Zine, give or take. I want to talk about ComicFury Zine in particular because I do things a little differently from how I do my normal comic stuff for this zine, in part because I've been wanting to contribute to the multiple editions that come out each year, so I needed to really reduce the amount of work that I normally do on my comic pages. So I'm going to be talking about that, talking about my experience with the zine overall, and in the background you can enjoy these time lapses of me working on my cover art and page art for the Angelic Beings Winter 2025 edition. Alright, let's just jump right in. So, zines, at least in my experiences, usually have a theme. Using this year's ComicFury Zine themes as an example, the 2 themes were Demonic Beings for the Not Safe for Work Spring-Summer edition, and Angelic Beings for the Safe for Work Fall-Winter edition. Obviously, I had to contribute to these. I mean, it's not like I have a comic with OCs that are half demon, half angel, or anything like that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Previous zines I've contributed, or almost contributed to, had themes of Psychedelica and A Walk in the Woods, both of which were ComicFury Zine editions that I had prepared sketches and pitches for, but I had to back out due to trying to cope with the grief I was dealing with after my mom passed away. And Fall with the Fae, which was my first full contribution to the project. I've also done projects that are for specific fandoms and not related to specific comics, IPs, or other projects like OC-focused zines. It really just depends on what comes across my feed and what I feel like I have the time and interest in. Some projects might be more strict with what they will and won't allow, and others are probably going to be more flexible. It really just depends on the people running the project. ComicFury Zine is pretty flexible in my experience. You can pretty much do whatever kind of interpretation for the theme that you want, as long as it touches on the theme. And obviously it has to be related to your comic in some way. So again, using the Fall, Winter, Angelic Being ones as an example, the only way my comic really relates to the angelic theme is the fact that my main characters from the comic I'm basing this short story out of are half angel. It focuses more on actions and kindness more than anything directly related to, like, being angelic in any way. To contrast this, my previous entries were a little bit more on the nose when it comes to the theme, but again, there's a lot of flexibility. You can do more or less whatever you want as long as the theme is touched on in some way. So once the theme is set, I can start thinking about ideas. For short comics like these, I usually focus on just 1 or 2 characters from any of my comics, with one key idea or interaction that I want to cover. For the Psychedelica theme that I ended up not contributing to, I was originally going to make a comic focused on Dionysus and Ariadne from Saffron Wave. I feel like this is pretty self-explanatory because Dionysus is the god of wine and revelry. Yeah, it basically just wrote itself. For A Walk in the Woods, I actually wanted to make a comic about wildfires, since Greece and California have pretty similar climates, and both areas get pretty heavily affected by increasingly bad fire seasons. So that comic was going to be based on my own experiences living in a high fire risk area and just, dealing with that, and it was just going to be about Nefeli and Melita having to basically cut their vacation short due to being evacuated from the fires. With Fall with the Fae, I wanted to shift away from Saffron Wave and do something with Oh Holy Hex because I hadn't, and honestly still haven't really made time to work on that comic, and doing a short little one-shot like this felt like a good compromise. So I focused on 2 of the 3 main characters from that story, Lilith and Asher, in a sort of teaser about them having already met prior to the start of the comic proper. Fae-Kissed is particularly special to me as I figured out some pretty big world-building stuff for that universe while I was working on the comic and putting my ideas together, despite the final comic basically just being spice. This year I did want to stick with Oh Holy Hex characters, but I decided to make a comic about Lilith's sister Celia. In the original version of the comic I was working on years ago, Celia was going to be the evil twin, and she was basically just going to be terrible. But I ended up completely changing her personality with the revamped version that became Oh Holy Hex. So I thought that the zine would be a good low-stakes opportunity to explore what she's like now, especially since she takes on a much larger role in the revamped version of the story. Since the spring and summer edition was not safe for work, I thought about doing another spicy comic, but I came to the realization that Celia doesn't really give off the same kind of sexy vibe that Lilith does. She's much more reserved and prudish, and while she was originally meant to end up with Kanan, that just didn't really feel right anymore. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that Celia is just asexual. I could see her dating, but I couldn't really see her being any level of intimate with anyone in that regard, let alone really having kids or anything like that. So the Demonic Spirits comic ended up just being a sort of coming out for her. With the Angelic Beings, I wanted to continue exploring Celia's character. I'd been working out what kind of hobbies she has, how she moves through life, what her day-to-day is like, etc. And I knew I didn't really want to do something focused on her magical girl powers or abilities. Both Lilith and Celia look fairly normal in civilian form and can only manifest one side of themselves at a time via magical girl transformation, like in this illustration here. The tagline that I usually use to market Oh Holy Hex is a fantastically mundane urban fantasy, since this version of the story is a slice of life that just happens to take place in a fantasy world. We follow the characters' daily lives and relationships instead of some grand, overly ambitious plot, and I feel like my previous ComicFury Zine entries do a good job of reflecting that, so I wanted to stick more to the slice of life aspect. I also have this thing where I like to try and subvert themes and tropes and stuff and go against what I think the grain will be because I'm the world's most specialist comic creator ever, I guess. So I didn't want to do something super religious coded or magical supernatural. I don't know why I'm like this. I feel like trying to subvert people's expectations while still touching on the theme will make me stand out as a comic artist. I don't know. So we are focusing on the mundane, everyday, day-to-day lives of these fantastical beings and their fantasy world. And what could be more mundane than doing your freaking dishes?
I decided to draw from my own life experiences for this one again, and wanting an excuse to include more characters from that story, went with an idea that was very grounded in my personal reality, having your friends come over and helping clean your house. Earlier this summer, I was really struggling to keep my living space livable, so I asked my friends to come over and help me clean. Being neurodivergent, having somebody to body double with helps immensely when it comes to me getting things done. And between all of us, we got the apartment clean in a couple of hours, whereas if I was doing it on my own, it would have taken weeks, if not months, maybe. I had already decided a while ago to make Lilith and Celia neurodiverse as well, since they're basically just reflections of me. So it made sense that they would have a lot of the day-to-day struggles that I have, and this felt like the perfect idea for this zine. I could include the rest of the friend group, even though I didn't include anyone's name, so we don't know who they are, and write a sweet little story about calling on your community for help. The first few pages are Celia and her buddy Devora at ballet class, discussing the supposed quote-unquote advantage that Celia has in life on account of being half angel, and Celia immediately refuting it because her and Lilith's apartment is a neurodivergent disaster with piles of dirty dishes and laundry, trash everywhere, etc., and that tends to go against the typical vision of a pure, pristine, ineffable angel. Upon returning home, Celia is flabbergasted by the horde of trash bags at the front of her door. Carolina the witch greets them at the door and quickly pulls Celia inside to show off everyone's hard work. Shout out to Azul, the only member of the friend group mentioned by name but not shown. He's a Minotaur, and I could not be bothered to figure out how to draw him when I was already working on such a tight deadline. But we love a guy with a pickup truck who will do dump runs for us. Kasumi, a mermaid who has decided to live on land rather than underwater, has cleaned the living room and berates Celia for the unorganized collection of DVDs in incorrect cases. Totally not based on my own experiences of my little brother never putting the right DVD back in the frickin' case. Fun world-building tidbit, Kasumi is based off of a dolphin, and being mammalian, she can freely transform her lower half from a tail into legs, but due to some dolphins only having vestigial limbs, she can't really walk because her leg muscles have atrophied, and they aren't used to bearing all of her weight on land, whereas in the water she's just more buoyant, you know. So I wanted to give her a task that could accommodate that. We'll be going into depth about her disability and her process of going through physical therapy and stuff like that in the main comic, once I finally make time to work on it again. I just thought that I would mention it here since that's a detail that nobody's really going to notice, but I feel very proud of that little world-building bit, so I wanted to mention it here. Kanan, our token non-magical human, prides himself on cleaning the bathroom and only breaking 2 dishes during the process. Why were there dishes in the bathroom? None of your business. Asher, the half-fae heir to a large manufacturing company who would rather do literally anything else, tends to the plethora of moldy dishes and reassures Celia it's alright, he's got a respirator, he's good, he's got this. The comic ends with Celia's room sparkling clean and Carolina revealing that it was Lilith's idea to get everyone together to help out. It's not really evident in any of the zine comics or in the scant amount of pages that I've done for the main comic yet, but Lilith starts out as kind of a terrible person, so Celia is shocked by the fact that Lilith organized this whole cleaning escapade, given her reputation as being sort of a brat. Celia is floored by everyone's kindness and offers to buy dinner for everybody, while Lilith has dozed off partway through folding laundry in her still messy room. So the art style that it's not even really a different art style, I still draw the same way that I normally do, I just render things differently. But the style that I use for my zine comics lately is different from how I normally render my comic pages. Instead of doing full color, super detailed backgrounds and all that stuff, I tend to lean more towards a more manga inspired style. So it relies more on line work and screen tones and things like that. It's been a lot of fun to experiment with, and I've been really enjoying making these comics and getting to like mess around with how I want to do this style. I'm kind of thinking I might make the main comic like this too, just because Saffron Wave does take a lot of time and energy because it is full color. And I've recently come to the conclusion that I think the only way I could juggle 2 comics is if one of them has a more simple art style. So I'm thinking I might do the main Oh Holy Hex comic in this more manga-inspired style anyway. And then just for a little fun little fact about me and the way things affect me, I don't know. I do the color overlay over the whole page as sort of a nod to Shoujo Beat magazine. I read that thing pretty religiously in high school, and the pink and blue comic pages have always just kind of stuck out in my memory. So I really wanted to try and like emulate that here, so I just put a color overlay on top of everything else, and then I just like do spot color for characters' eyes because it just feels like a cool little nod to that, since the magazine had such an impact on me growing up. I really love the stories that I've been able to make because of this zine, and I really love the fact that I'm still able to work on my poor neglected second comic in some capacity. But I think this will be the last time that I contribute to ComicFury Zine. When I first started contributing in 2024, the zine's schedule involved check-ins before the final deadline, allowing artists ample time to get their submissions finished in time. Every other zine that I've done in the past has also worked with this sort of check-in model, and as somebody with really abysmal time management, having that external accountability really helps me stay on track and get things done without worrying about shirking something else, especially because I do work full-time and I do have a weekly updating webcomic. This year, the format changed. No more check-ins, and you needed a fully completed comic to apply with. You couldn't just submit a pitch and some sketches like before. This was basically a death sentence for me. The Demonic Spirit zine actually went pretty well for me despite this. The dates and deadlines are always announced in advance, so I was able to work out some sort of production timeline for myself as soon as the year began. Applications for the Demonic Spirits edition opened in April, and I had given myself a good month or 2 to start working on things ahead of time, so I was able to get my comic in before the April 30th deadline. That wasn't necessarily the case with the Angelic Beings one. I'd shifted my focus back to Saffron Wave after finishing my Demonic Spirit submission, and I just kind of forgot about the Angelic Beings one for a while. Applications for the Fall/Winter edition opened in August, and everyone was struggling, so much so that the deadline was extended from August 31st to September 30th. I can only speak for myself, but I had a really busy summer this year. Between my day job being absolutely bonkers, a general desire to want to go out and do stuff and hang out with my friends when the weather is nice, and still working on my weekly updating webcomic, plus going out of town for a convention at the end of August for a few days, the chances that I would have a finished zine comic by the original August 31st deadline were slim to none. If I'd started work immediately after finishing Demonic Spirits, I might have been able to make the original deadline, maybe? But I just have a really hard time holding myself accountable for something that my brain has deemed not a priority and portioning out my time for everything. So not having someone else holding me accountable by way of check-ins was really detrimental to me. I prioritize working on my webcomic, obviously, so as much as I really enjoy doing zines and stuff like that, unless somebody else is holding me accountable, I struggle with meeting deadlines, and it's not fun. It sucks a lot of the fun out of the process. So ComicFury Zine switching up their format this year was like a really big blow to me. I ended up drawing 3 pages plus the cover art between September 27th and September 30th. I don't know if any of you are going to be really familiar with how detailed my comic art ends up being. If not, you should go read my webcomic. What are you doing? Go do that immediately after you finish this video. Even drawing in this more simple manga-inspired style that I've been using for the zines, where it focuses more on screen tones and spot color than full color like my work normally has, it was still a lot of work to do in a really short amount of time. And it's not that I didn't want to work on this project, I really did. I am just so incredibly bad at time management, and I had been already struggling to stay on top of Saffron Wave updates post-convention. I ended up really mismanaging my time this time around, and having to do all of that work so close to the submission deadline that I had to lock myself away that weekend just to get it all done. Now, this isn't to say that I think the project overall has been mismanaged or that I'm trying to blame the staff for something that's entirely my own fault. The team running the zine has perfectly logical, reasonable reasons for implementing this change, and I cannot fault them for trying to make their side of things easier. I've never had to run a project like this with so many moving parts coming from so many people, but I do have 3 cats, and trying to get them all in the same room must feel pretty similar. This is just me recognizing my limits and what I am and am not capable of and willing to put up with when it comes to other projects. I do really enjoy having an excuse to make some silly little comic, exploring whatever silly little ideas pop into my head about my characters, and I absolutely want to continue contributing to zines and anthologies going forward, and maybe even finish those first 2 pitches for ComicFury Zine that I never got to make. Maybe I'll release them as bonus stories for Saffron Wave to post between chapters, or as part of a collected edition, I don't know. I've already got another anthology project on deck for 2026 that I should really start working on top of all of my normal comic stuff. I just don't think that this new process ComicFury Zine is going with is going to work for me long term. So, unless there's another theme that I just cannot resist, this will probably be my last time contributing to it. It's just not worth the stress of me trying to stay on top of things, knowing how bad I am at managing my own time myself. I really love making these silly little zine comics and silly little zine illustrations. I just need that little bit of extra help via check-ins to really stay on track so I'm not stressing myself out trying to make something. Alright, that's going to be it for this one. Thank you so much for sticking around and hanging out and making it this far. Please check out ComicFury Zine Angelic Beings, the link will be down in the description. If you're of age and you would like to see the not safe for work zines, I've also provided a link to the ComicFury Zine site where they're all listed. I'm not going to post the links there directly for obvious reasons. You should also check out my webcomics. Saffron Wave is a historical magical girl comic with 5 completed chapters as of right now, so please go and read that. It's fantastic, I promise. And Oh Holy Hex is a mature urban fantasy comic with like 3 pages, something like that. I'm working on getting it off the ground again. It's coming, I promise. It's just gonna take me a while to fix some stuff. Feel free to like, comment, all that stuff. I don't post on a schedule, so please subscribe and turn on notifications if you'd like to be notified of my next video. Alternatively, you can join my Patreon where I post all of this stuff ahead of time. That's gonna be it for me. I'll see you next time. Bye!